Okay, so here we are ready to begin the dark side. We're going to the dark side. And by the dark side, I mean the dark reactions. Blah. Okay, so we're dealing with the, as I stated in the first half of this, the light independent reactions, which is also called the Calvin cycle. Where does this take place? Do you guys remember? That's right, the stroma. Okay, so the Calvin cycle is the second stage of photosynthesis. The first stage being, of course, the light-dependent reactions. The Calvin cycle is sometimes referred to as the dark reactions because it does not require light to run. Can it be in light? Absolutely. Yes, it can. Okay, what are we doing in the Calvin cycle? In the Calvin cycle, we're fixing carbon dioxide. When you hear the word fixing in biology or environmental science, what we mean is that we're turning a gas into a solid. Carbon dioxide is a gas, sugar is a solid. And for a planet that is in trouble, in peril, because of excess carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, anything out there that fixes carbon dioxide to a solid is desirable and beautiful. Okay? So in the Calvin cycle, carbon dioxide, a gas from the atmosphere, is brought together with a sugar, a 5-carbon sugar called ribulose biphosphate. Okay, so to recap, carbon dioxide, 1 carbon, is being brought together with a 5-carbon sugar, ribulose bisphosphate. Okay, and just like we dealt in respiration, where the Krebs cycle, we have to account for everything per cycle and per sugar. We're going to have to do something similar here in the Calvin cycle as well. Okay. So what's being produced in the Calvin cycle is glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate, G3P. Okay. This is the product of photosynthesis, and you might not remember it, but we introduced this last week in respiration, and we're going to go there again because at the end of the day, your author says that G3P is the final product. It's a little white lie. It's really glucose as the final product. So the thing is that glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate has 3 carbons, right? And glucose has 6 carbons. So how many G3Ps do you need for glucose? The answer should be 2. Okay, so just like we did before, we have to look at the cycle per, and then look at the cycle multiplied by 2 to yield what's going on per sugar. Okay, so in the Calvin cycle, 3-carbon cycle, let me try that again. 3 carbon dioxides are added to 3 ribulose bisphosphates to yield 1 glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. Okay, so it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. So 3 carbon dioxides come together with 3 ribulose bisphosphates. Remember, the ribulose is a 5-carbon sugar, so we're adding 1 to 5. Okay, and we churn this 3 times, so 3 CO2s turn into a single glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate, because this has 1 carbon and this one has 3. Okay, how do we know? Because this phosphate is of carbon number 3. That's why it says G3P. Now, is this what we care about? Actually, we care about glucose. So this guy has 3 carbons and glucose has 6. It stands to reason that we need 2 of these to yield 1 of those. How do we do that? We take all this and we multiply it by 2. So 3 times 2 is 6. So 6 carbon dioxide are going to come together with 6 ribulose bisphosphates, and is going to yield 2 glyceraldehyde 3-phosphates that will eventually turn into a single glucose. Okay? So for cycle, 3CO2 yield 1G3P, but to make a glucose, it's going to be, we're going to take this and multiply by 2, so it's going to be 6 CO2s with 6 ribulose bisphosphates, which is a 5-carbon sugar, to yield 2 G3Ps or 1 glucose. Okay? So remember, conservation of matter. 6 carbons here, 2 times 3 is 6 carbons here, and 1 times 6 is 6 carbons here. And here's the big picture. Here's, I mean, there's hypothetically important aspects of the steps that you should remember, like what's called carbon fixation, where we cover this, right? The fact that carbon goes from a gas to a solid, energizing of the sugar, which means that we're investing ATP and NADPH. Exit of product, there's the G3P that we just produced, and then the regeneration of the ribulose bisphosphate to start the cycle again. Okay, so hypothetically, you should know these 4 steps. Personally, I just want you to look at the big picture. Okay, what's the big picture? How much energy is being invested in producing 1 glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate? Okay, so let's count it. You can look at this guy, or you can look at this little guy up here. They both do the same thing. So we're going to take 3 CO2s. In other words, we're looking at this one right here. Okay, we're going to take 3 carbon dioxides. Those 3 carbon dioxides are going to associate with 3 molecules of ribulose bisphosphate. Okay. In doing that, we're going to invest 6 ATP here and another 3 over here. That's 9 ATP. Wow. In addition to that, we're going to invest 6 NADPHs. Guys, I don't know if you're seeing it, but this is a whole lot of energy investment. Okay. And then after investing all that energy, what do we harvest? A single glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate right here. That's it. So it's like boom, 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 1G3P. That's a lot of energy. Now here's the author's disclaimer. G3P can be used for energy for the plant growth and everything. Blah, blah, baloney. Okay, we're not gonna buy into this. Here's where we are. Okay, we just finished seeing it. This is total energy investment. In the Calvin cycle, we need to invest 9 ATP. Here they are. 6 plus 3 is 9. Here's my 9 ATP. We need to invest 6 NADPH. Here it is. 6 NADPH. In doing so, we're going to need 3 carbon dioxides. Here they are. 3 molecules of carbon dioxide. All that to produce 1 glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. Okay? Now, we're doing this calculation for a sugar. You guys remember that? So for a sugar, what do? Here's per cycle. Here's per sugar. What do? We multiply by 2, right? Because we don't need 1 G3P, we need 2 G3P. 2 sugars that have 3 carbons each. Okay? So over here, what we're going to do is we're going to take the totals and we're going to multiply them times 2. 2 times 9 is 18. 2 times 6 is 12. 2 times 3 is 6. There, we have the 6 carbons that we're going to end up using in sugar. Now we have to convert all this into ATP. Well, the ATP just carries forward, but if you forget, in respiration we said that the NADPH carrier produces about 3 ATPs, 3 of them. So what we're going to do is we're going to take 12, multiply it times 3, and this 12 NADPH is equal to 36 ATPs. The 6 just carries forward. What are the totals? 18 plus 36 is 54. The 6 just carries forward. Now, we get to look at where that G3P is at. This is kind of cool. Let's see if you guys see this. What we're going to do is we're going to go to last week's. We're going to go to last week. This is slide 20. This is slide 20 in last week. Look at that. There's G3P. Do you guys see it? G3P. Glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. What are we trying to make? We're trying to make glucose. Okay? So if we were going from here to G3P, we would be making 2 ADPs. But we're going backwards. We're going from G3P to glucose. So we're making 2 ATPs. Are you guys with me? We're making 2 ATPs. Now here's the thing. Here's the thing. This is energy investment, not energy production. So if we're to make 2 ATPs, that's a production, not an investment. So in glycolysis, instead of adding 2, we have to subtract 2. So 54 minus 2 is 52. There. So what? Well, the so what is that it took 52 molecules of ATP to produce a single glucose. How many, if we were to have one glucose, how many ATPs would we make? Well, that's the question we answered last week. Let's see if you guys remember this. Here's last week, and I made a little thing for you guys that looked like this. Remember this? I said glycolysis is 2 and a 2 and a 0 and a 0. Intermediate step minus 2, 2. Remember this garbage? Krebs cycle. And then we added them all up, and then we multiplied by 3 for NADH. We multiplied by 2 for FADH. And then we added all the ATP. And we finally figured out that was exciting. We figured out that per sugar, we are making 36 ATP per sugar. But in photosynthesis, to produce that same sugar, it does. How many ATPs do we need? Do we need 36? No, we need 52. We need 52. You guys see what's going on here? So if I have a sugar and I need to harvest energy, I get 36 ATP. If I have ATP and I need to make a sugar, I need 52. How many of you expected the answer to be that these two numbers would be the same? Saying photosynthesis is just the opposite of respiration. It should be just the opposite, right? No, no, it is not. It takes a lot more energy to make a sugar than the energy that we get out of it. Why is that? The why is the second law of thermodynamics. Okay, and then the second law of thermodynamics, we say that the universe is increasing in chaos. Okay, so in another way of saying this is that it is easier to mess something up than to organize something. Wow, isn't that the truth? Right? If you're in a room and you want to mess up that room, you can grab boxes, start throwing them around. I mean, the amount of a mess they can make in 10 minutes would probably take hours to clean. Why? Because when the universe goes into chaos, it doesn't care how that chaos takes place. The chaos is random. However, when you organize things, we care about how it goes back together. It can only go back in one possible orientation. That's it, no more. And because of that, the ways of chaos is always going to be more than the ways of order, always. And that is a measurement of chaos that's always going to be excessive. To give you another example, remember the good old days when you're traveling somewhere, you stop by a gasoline station and you pick up a map. I don't know about you guys, but I would open that map, and that's pretty easy. And then it would take me half an hour to get that darn thing back to the way that it was when I bought it. You can call me a nincompoop if you want, but the truth of the matter is that in order for it to fit the way that it was before, it can only go back one way. It can only go back one way. But to expand it, you don't have to pay any attention to it. It takes a lot less energy to expand the map than to fold it back into its original orientation. Yet there's only one choice for the original orientation. So when you make sugar, there's only one way in which that carbon can go back to its original orientation. So it's easier to tear a sugar apart than to put it back together. By how much? Quite a bit. We take 52, divide it by 36, multiply by 100. The difference is 44%. Holy cannoli. So we have to invest an additional 44% in photosynthesis to make sugar. That's quite a bit. Again, that second law of thermodynamics is a son of a gun. Okay. Last point. The last point is photorespiration. We started with this topic at the beginning of the last hour because remember I told you plants that carry out photosynthesis, which means that they're taking in carbon dioxide and they're taking in water. They're producing sugar and they're producing oxygen, right? And the way that these gases enter and exit the leaf petiole is that there's stoma, not stroma. There's stoma, okay, on the underside of the leaf that opens when it needs carbon dioxide, but closes in order to prevent moisture from exiting. And a lot of times you're in trouble because it's a hot day, it's a dry day, and the plant doesn't want to lose water moisture, so it closes the stomata. But in closing the stomata, it means that carbon dioxide cannot come in order to carry out photosynthesis. And so we end up with a problem. Okay. So if you notice back on the carbon fixation, okay, notice that a carbon dioxide comes together with a 5-carbon sugar, ribulose bisphosphate, to form a 6-carbon sugar to fix carbon. And this is facilitated by an enzyme amusingly called Rubisco. It's like Nabisco, but with an R, Rubisco, okay? And here's where the hiccup is at this initial step, okay? So what happens is that enzyme, that Rubisco, if the pores are open and there's a lot of oxygen, it will bind with the oxygen instead of carbon dioxide, and this is called photorespiration. This undermines the efforts of photosynthesis, which is to produce sugar and oxygen. So when this photorespiration takes place, there's less sugar being produced during photosynthesis. Okay. As the temperature increases and the day becomes drier, the plants close their stomata to keep in moisture, but that also causes them to keep out carbon dioxide. This is a problem because now Rubisco, instead of associating with carbon dioxide the way that it's supposed to, it associates with oxygen, carrying out photorespiration. Okay. So there's 3 main motifs that we look at. We look at C3, C4, and CAM plants. Okay. The most common type of plant is what's called a C3 plant. And C3 plants live in temperate weather where it's not very hot. There's plenty of moisture, and so they don't have to worry about photorespiration. But as we move into warm climates, plants have evolved to become C4 plants. Okay, what does this mean? This means that a C4 plant stores carbon dioxide as a 4-carbon moiety, or a 4-carbon molecule, during the time that it's cool, like at night. And then during the day, it goes to the stomata, and it takes this banked 4-carbon molecule, turns it into carbon dioxide, and enters the Calvin cycle. Examples of C4 plants are usually grasses such as grass, corn, maybe bamboo. In other words, monocots. Okay, so plants that are grasses are typically C4 plants, and they live in relatively warm areas. So this carbon dioxide is shuttled to a special place. It's called the bundle sheath cell right here. Okay, so notice what's going on. Okay, carbon dioxide enters. It enters a metabolic pathway that turns it into a 4-carbon moiety. It gets banked inside the leaf petiole as this 4-carbon moiety. And then during the day, when the stomata are closed, the C4 breaks up into carbon dioxide and enters the Calvin cycle in the bundle sheath cell. Okay. Myself. So that enters the mesophyll cells and then enters the Calvin cycle as carbon dioxide. Cam plants. C stands for carboxylic acid metabolism. Okay. Cam plants are the ones that are in the worst environments, such as deserts. So this is even worse. In cam plant photosynthesis, the plants come out open only at night, letting in and fixing carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is then banked until sunrise, and the sun's rays will supply the energy needed for the to power the Calvin cycle. So cam plants are like C4 plants, but this metabolism is even more efficient, which means that these plants have adapted to the driest and hottest climates. So we're talking about cacti, we're talking about succulents, okay? So dry weather plants such as cacti employ another form of photosynthesis, cam photosynthesis. Again, that's carboxylic acid, okay? And that's it, people. What do you think? Hopefully I didn't bore you too much. I go over this because I find this quite incredible. It just blows my mind how much more energy poor plants have to invest to produce sugar, just so that a mean animal like us can take advantage of it. But there it is. So I hope this made sense to you. Here's the heart of the process. Just like the Krebs cycle is the heart in respiration, the Calvin cycle is the heart of the process in photosynthesis. Okay, so I'm going to stop talking because I really don't have anything else to share with you. Thank you very much. Have yourselves a wonderful, wonderful day. Thank you.